everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Acting Class by Nick Drnaso. I'm going to guess is how the last name is pronounced. Hervoye, I know you're out there, and hopefully I got your name right this time. But you're always correcting my pronunciation, so if you could tell me how to pronounce that, that would be awesome. This is published by Drawn and Quarterly, so you know like the production's going to be top-notch. It's got like a nice matte paper, really like soaks up and desaturates the colors, and it's exactly the type of printing that I like, especially for the type of art that Drnaso has. Also really like all of the colored line art on this opening page. This is a strange book. I know Drnaso has two other books out. I've not read them. This is my first work by him, and I almost get the feeling that maybe they're all interconnected, partially because I'm pretty sure I've read a short from him in Fantagraphics Now, or like Best American Comics Collection or something like that, where a character in it was also signing up for like stand-up comedy improv classes or something like that, and that's what this is too. And the way that the story ends off feels like there's a bigger world that I'm missing out on. So it made it hard for me to like once I got to the end, it made it hard for me to mentally come back and make sense of how I feel about the whole thing. The reading experience was very compelling, and I got caught up in all the different characters, and there's a whole bunch of them, and I got caught up in like these ominous undertones of what's going on in the book, but nothing ever really gets explained. And so I don't want to give away too much about it since it's a new book, but also it's hard to formulate a criticism of it. And by criticism, I just mean giving my opinion on it, not negative or positive. Just hard to formulate like an opinion about what exactly is going on in the book. But I found it compelling, and I'm thinking about it a lot, so that's cool. I've talked about that before. It's the fried pickles thing, where it's like I just got to kind of keep coming back to it, and it definitely makes me want to go check out the rest of this artist's work, his other two books, and there's something that the artist is up to, but with this one thing, I don't know what it is, or it feels like this artist is up to something consistent. Another part of that sense of consistency is the artwork. The artwork has this like just brutally deadpan kind of vibe to it that like sometimes is irritating, but it also is just like it's very captivating at the same time. But anyways, at the beginning of the book just introduces you to the cast of characters, which is pretty big, and because of the way Drnaso draws, it took me a second to get a hold of everyone and even understand like what sex everyone was. Like this opening sequence with Rosie and Dennis, a married couple whose relationship is kind of just stalled out and boring, and they're trying to like bring it back together. I had a hard time telling that this was a male and female at first until they started using their names. And to me, the way that he draws faces, like the faces kind of all look the same to me. It's just the hairstyles or the clothing is what separates out the characters. And like maybe it's because I have a color sight problem as well. I know their hair is a slightly different color, but they just look kind of like the same person to me. You just have to pay attention to like, well, this character has a wisp and they're wearing different clothes. And that's exacerbated throughout the book. It almost feels like a stock face throughout the book, just with different hairstyles. I also find the drawings of the face very unsettling. Like the way he draws eyes is very unsettling, and the way that like everything's got an outline around it except for the lips, and then the lips are just always colored in on males and females. They're like colored without a line around it. Something about that, like the whole thing is really unsettling to me. But that keeps me like engaged too. I'm sure that's partially intentional, because this is kind of a like reality upturned kind of in the story as well, and it feels like that, like almost too described or something. I don't know. It's hard to trying to formulate this. I was thinking about while I'm reading it, but this is my first shot talking about it. The second characters you're introduced to are Ryan and her son Marcus. She's like a housewife that, or a single mom that's kind of just pent up. And then you get this character, Angel, and there's a couple other incidental characters. You also start to realize as the book that some of these characters have other sorts of relationships. Like, what's this character's name? Rosie and Angel work together in a weird shop where they like paint hand lettering onto things. So you start to get a greater sense of how all these people relate. Then you get Thomas, who's a figure model, and Beth and her grandma, whose name I didn't write down because I don't think it showed up here. But they're all kind of in the story. And then you get this character, Lou, who I never really figured out what he's up to. He's like this strange outsider character that you never get a hold of. And then you get the introduction to, like, there's this acting class. And so it's like a movie where they introduce you to all the characters and then they very quickly bring them together. You meet another character, Danielle, which again, to me, this looked like a male character, but I guess it's female. And then you meet also, what's this character's name? I believe his name is Nick. He switches names because he seems to have like separate identities throughout the thing. And then you get introduced to the guy that's running these like improv acting classes that they're going to, and he presents himself as John Smith. So this very banal name. And throughout the book, you get this kind of sense that he's like hypnotizing them or something. I don't know quite how to explain it, but when they go into these, Neil, not Nick. Sorry, this is Neil, this character here. So that's what the most of the book is what's going on in their day-to-day life and how the characters interacting and how their relationships evolving. That's all pretty compelling. One thing that I really like is in this opening sequence. Throughout this first few pages of the book, I thought, oh my god, this like dialogue is really, really stiff. And then I realized that it's a couple, like they're trying to like role play like that it's on their first date, and so that stiffness comes through. And then when they go into more natural settings, the dialogue will open up and feel more natural. And when they go into the acted settings, sometimes it feels stiff again. So I appreciate that about the writing. But there is a sense of stiffness throughout the whole book. And I mean, obviously, that's just in the art style, too. Like, there's this very deadpan nature to everything. But as they get into their acting in the class, they'll really get involved in, and at first I thought this was more just like metaphorical, like they're imagining the situation. So you'll switch from this gymnasium that they're in into the house party that the improv is supposed to be about. But as the book goes, you start to get the sense that these characters have been hypnotized, or some of them seem to have mental problems of their own already, and they're like using this acting class to deal with it, and they're starting to mix up the fiction and the reality. But it does seem like there's some bigger thing that the John Smith character is trying to accomplish here. And so that's like compelling. I was waiting to see what that was, and that's where I feel like this is part of some bigger world that I don't understand, because that's hinted at and kind of suggested at but never explained. Maybe that's just to be left open to the reader. I don't know. But as you're getting towards the end of the book, there's this real sense of like there's no way that this all wraps up, and that was the case. And I don't know that that's particularly a problem. It just makes me think that I'm missing something from his other work, or even if it's supposed to be an open ending where I don't really totally get it, and it's left up to me to decide. I feel like having read Nick Drnaso's other work, I would have a better sense of what his kind of focus is as an artist, and his style of drawing and coloring is so deadpan in particular that I feel like there must be some through line between all of the work. So I'm curious about that. I'm curious to hear what people watching this video that have read all the stuff have to say, and I'm curious to find out for myself. So that's basically the structure of the book. is you get the kind of these characters in their real life, and then you get these acting scenarios and these fantasies that they go into, and those start to merge, and there's kind of these mysteries and stuff, but it's all very mysterious and left open. The other thing that I wanted to know, and this is a really good example here that goes with the stiffness of it all, is I got this sense throughout the book, and I don't think this is actually what happened, because I've used like Google SketchUp or a program like that before, and it gets some weird distortions on it that I'm not seeing in the way Drnaso uses perspective. Like, this looks like somebody who just understands how to draw perspective drawing it well, but there's a real sense of the way that the characters sit in the perspective that feels like Google SketchUp. That you did a Google SketchUp room, and if you've ever seen Google SketchUp, there's like a little character, like a that's like 6 feet tall, I think, that you can just place around to get a sense of scale. And that's how all these characters feel to me, is like this cut and paste, like little scale marker character. And for a book that's about acting, there's hardly ever any like facial expressions. They're all just this very blank expression. There's really, like I said, there's not much variation in face at all. It's just haircut. So they feel like these stock characters, like there'll be some, she looks a little heavier there or something, but when you get them all standing there, it's like the same character cut and pasted with the different hair and different clothes put on. And then they're hardly ever doing anything either. They're always just standing there with their hands hanging at their side, or like folded or in their pockets. They're barely ever like emoting and acting, and when they sit, it's this very dead sit. So everything feels, and this is the perfect one, the perfect example of that, where they're all in this hallway, but it doesn't look like anyone's interacting. It looks like when you log into like VR chat, or I think more of Second Life, which I know is out of date now, but Second Life, or these things where people have avatars and they're just kind of sitting there idling and like chatting, and then maybe every now and then they do like this really stock rigid gesture. Like, that's how all the art feels to me. And that adds to the uncanniness of the whole experience. So I think part of that's just how Nick Drnaso has developed into an artist, but I think a lot of that as well is intentional. I think there's a vibe that's coming across. It's actually interesting, because the next project I want to do, I've been talking about a long time, haven't had time. Bound. My initial attempt at finding a style for that book looked a lot like this, because I wanted something very rigid, somebody bound by rules, and I wanted everything to be a really clean, closed off line. And conceptually that worked for me, but when I started drawing it, it just didn't feel right for the character or something like that. So like, I get it, there is definitely like a reason within a story or within an art practice to do this stiff style. I had considered it myself, and got really close to using it. And actually, I think, having seen just a couple glances of Drnaso's art other places, he was probably my main reference going into thinking of my initial attempt at what style I wanted to use on that project. I think I was probably thinking heavily of having seen this and a couple of other artists that work like this. Here's another example. They're all just kind of sitting there like these frozen dolls or something. It's like he's setting up dolls and just taking pictures and then tracing the dolls. And it feels kind of traced, except the faces are like bad tracings of faces. But I don't know. It's strange. I don't know what to make of it. But it accentuates the story for sure. And it takes something very mundane and accentuates the mundanity, but at the same time makes it unsettling and uncanny. And that's kind of magical. Like, it's frustrating in some senses, but it's also compelling in ways. Like, it has a very visceral vibe. But then you get pages like this where that mundanity breaks down and it goes into this really trippy thing. I mean, it's still fairly stiff art, but it's way more lively and playful. So I know that this artist like has more in their repertoire, and they're restraining themselves. Even some formal play like this, like climbing out of this and down into here, is very interesting, and it breaks this really boom boom monotone grid of the whole book. So I don't know. It's a really interesting book. I don't know what to make of it though. I definitely would recommend it as something to go read, and it's an experience and something to grapple with. And then, like I've said a couple times, I just I want to go read more of the art because I feel like there's more to be understood about this work if I understand the artist more. And maybe not. Maybe I'm just giving too much credit to the artist, but I like to give credit to artists, where I can, because this is a big book. It's 200 almost, yeah, 270 pages almost. Very well written, and it really seems to be doing what it intends to be doing. I don't know what it intends to be doing though. Usually I can say I think this is what the artist is up to. I don't know yet. That's why I want to read more of Drnaso's work. If I read two more full works and I'm still like, I don't know what you're doing, what you're trying to do, but I don't know what it is, then maybe I'd be more critical of the artist, right? Like, I've read 3 of your things now and I still don't know what you're about. That would be more of a problem for me. So with this one, it's just, I don't know what to make of it, but it makes me want more. So like fried pickles, but then I get to go eat ice cream afterwards or something like that. I don't know. That's it. That's my opinion of the book. I don't want to go too much in the details. It's new. It just came out. So I would encourage you to pick it up, and I really look forward to the comments on this one, because maybe people could tell me more or make more sense of this for me, or tell me don't go buy the other 3 books. You're not going to get any more answers. I don't know. This one I'm really interested in the discussion about it. So yeah, appreciate you following along for this. If you enjoy what we do here on the channel, there's 2 ways to help support us. One is we have a Patreon that we always appreciate people, helping support what we do financially through that. There's a couple different tiers where you can like do votes or compete to get sketches. Check out the work that me and Sean are doing. We do previews of our work there sometimes. So that's available. And then the best thing to do really is just support the books that Sean has put out and has coming out from Living the Line. So we'll take a look at a couple of those now. The Abolition of Man is a 5-issue mini-series done by myself and Sean in collaboration with the Midjourney AI. What you're seeing here is the cover to issue 1 and the first couple pages of issue 1. This first issue, we fed it an essay by C.S. Lewis, and this is just the imagery that the computer spat back at us. Issues 2 and 3 are a narrative, starting with the story that I wrote when I was 21, and then Sean's going to write issue 3, picking up where I left off. In this one, I'm kind of trying to force the AI to give me the images I want, and then doing some tweaking in Photoshop to get these kind of colored looks on it. For issue 4, we're turning the task of writing over to the AI as well. So the AI has written the script, and then we've just put that into the Midjourney AI, and it's turned out art. The script and the art is some of the absolutely most horrific stuff I've ever seen. We're a bit scared to even publish this issue. And I don't have any art to show for it yet, but Sean and I have decided to do a 5th issue of Abolition as well, because we have someone who we're really, really excited to have on board, providing an essay for that 5th issue that we'll illustrate, and we'll announce more about that soon. There's also Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, which is a totally intense manga by an artist who has somehow figured out how to distill manga down to its purest essence. This book was successfully funded on Kickstarter, but if you missed the Kickstarter, you can order it through any comic store, any bookstore, Amazon, any place that you would normally get your graphic novels from. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash